We commenced chapter 7, we finished chapter 6 last time, and now we start with chapter 7, which is economic calculation. The font is all right, it's readable.
Yes.
All right, fine. So, money, as we discussed in the previous chapter, makes lots of exchanges possible that are impractical or impossible under barter trade. We are better off as a result, but money has greater implications that are often overlooked or misunderstood. Chief among these is economic calculation, which is the process of determining how scarce resources should be used to produce the most valuable outcomes possible. Economic calculation is a core of any economy. So throughout the course of this book, we've studied about what barter is, and all of us, I'm sure, know what barter is, and how the presence of a common unit of exchange, such as money or a currency, helps trade and commerce in advancing further and solves what is referred to as the double coincidence of wants. So this passage basically talks about how the presence of money, a common denominator, a common currency, facilitates trades that are inconceivable and impossible in a barter economy. We can use technological knowledge to maximize the production process's outcome given the inputs and outputs, and to reject inputs that are unsuitable for that type of production. But which input to use, which production process to undertake, which production technologies produce the better, that is, higher value outcome, which outcomes to strive for are fundamentally economic decisions. For example, technological knowledge can tell us that gold is too soft to use for railroad tracks, but it cannot tell us which harder metal is best, the most valuable to use, iron, steel, or platinum. The answer requires knowing what else those metals can be used for, how valuable those uses are, and how much of each metal is available. Technological knowledge also cannot tell us when, how, or whether to build the railroad. Where should the railroad be built? Should it be built at all, or should the resources go to building some other type of infrastructure or something else altogether? Those are all economic questions. They are based on our calculation of the relative value outcome. So this passage basically emphasizes that having a technical knowledge of an input in any manufacturing process in itself is not adequate. Rather, it's also imperative to refer to a term that is known as economic calculation. Okay. Now, it's possible to manufacture a good in multiple manners, but it's important to use the most optimal method. Like if a manufacturer wants to manufacture good X, okay, a good, let's assume there's a good called X, and a manufacturer wants to manufacture it, there can be multiple mechanisms. The manufacturer can use orthodox technology that relies heavily on labor, okay, and the benefit of which could be that you need to invest less money on purchasing machines, so your capital investment is less. And the other alternative could be that the manufacturer could manufacture the same good X using advanced technology and modern machines, thereby reducing his consumption of labor, but he will have to incur higher setup costs because he'll have to purchase expensive machines. So a good X can be manufactured in multiple methods. So economic calculation is basically taking all aspects into consideration and deciding like which method would be more beneficial, will be the most cost efficient and economical to manufacture that good X. And it's also like this passage also talks about the outcome, right? So it's also possible for a manufacturer to manufacture cheap products of cheap quality and sell them in bulk, or it's also possible for them to manufacture few products of premium quality and make higher profits. So all of these decisions are to be taken into consideration. So just having technological knowledge and just knowing that a certain machine can give you certain output, or that a certain metal has certain properties, is not adequate. Rather, a lot of other factors are taken into consideration in manufacturing, and they put together are referred to as economic calculation. That is what this chapter is all about. Uh, yeah. A metal that is far from technologically perfect may actually be the best choice, even if it means laying new rails from time to time. The best solution in terms of technology gives us little to no information on the value outcome of the cost of production. Without economic calculation, an economy is unable to economize on scarce resources. Like for instance, if you want to build a railroad, it doesn't make any sense to build a railroad using gold because it's going to be very, very expensive and whoever is running the railway will never be able to recuperate the cost. So even if you have to use a metal which is slightly softer than gold, you will use it because it's more cost efficient. Even if you have to repair it frequently or you have to replace the tracks frequently, you will do that. Because even if the metal is slightly softer and requires more maintenance than gold, it is going to be drastically cheaper than gold. So just knowing that gold is a harder metal than any other metal does not give you adequate information about whether gold should be used to build rail tracks or no. You need more information pertaining how cost effective it is. Money facilitates economic calculation, an essential mechanism in a market economy by serving as a common unit. In other words, it allows for monetary calculation. This was kind of a preface that talks about how money is an upgrade over the barter system and how merely knowing the technological aspect of any input that is used in a manufacturing process does not give you adequate information. Rather, you need more information pertaining the input and the output and the cost efficiency of all the different ingredients or the different sub processes in the manufacturing. And this cumulative study is referred to as uh, what term do they refer to it as? Economic calculation. Cool. So we'll dig into the first paragraph, which is titled "The Nature of a Productive Economy." Economists have long known that productivity is closely related to specialization. We saw in chapter 5 that capital increases productivity and it does so by making labor more productive. We get more out of our labor efforts if we use appropriate tools and machines. This is a very common misconception that a lot of people have, especially in our part of the world, that machines replace humans. And whenever you see there's a technological advancement, a lot of people out of their ignorance will uh, try to veto it, will try to claim that machines will eat up all human labor, whether it was computers or whether it was anything else. Whenever a new technology was invented, there was always this group of people who believe that technology is bad, technology eats up labor, and technology will eat up human jobs, and computers will eat up human jobs, and artificial intelligence will eat up human jobs. And this is a futile concept. So market exchanges, in fact, technology makes labor more productive and creates more jobs for humans. Market exchanges also makes labor more productive because people can focus on producing the things that create most value regardless of whether they personally value or use them. Instead of people being self-sufficient and producing everything they need for their everyday lives, markets allow them to develop their unique abilities and take advantage of economies of scale of how average cost falls with higher production volumes to increase their overall value output. So this excerpt, it highlights the importance of having a market instead of every person being self-sufficient, like everybody making his own bread, everybody having their own cattle to eat, everybody farming their own vegetables, everybody sewing their own clothes, everybody building their own houses. Instead of every person trying to be self-sufficient, we have this concept of a market where people with specializations offer their goods and services for sale in the market. So there's a carpenter who'll offer furniture. There is, for instance, a software developer who'll offer his software as a service. There is a tailor who offers sewing services, etc. And this is a better alternative as we'll see further as compared to every person trying to be self-sufficient and trying to fulfill their all their needs for survival. Specialization or focusing our time and effort on a narrow set of productive activities has two main effects. First, when we specialize, we become better at carrying out specific productive activities. Adam Smith noted that specializing makes us many times more effective and productive because we firstly do not lose time shifting from one task to another, develop and increase dexterity and workmanship, and can more easily identify how to use simple machines or develop new tools to become even more effective. So here onwards, we'll discuss about specialization in skills. How like today we live in a world that is full of specialization. Like one person is good at one thing. Even in a certain industry, there are specialization. Even if in the web development industry, for instance, there's a front end developer, there's a back end developer, Very rarely will you find one person doing everything, and that's the better way to do it. That gets the better output in any industry. Even if there's a car, then there's one person who's a specialist in making seats. There's a person who's specialist in making tires. There's a person who's specialist in painting. There's a person who's specialist in manufacturing the engine. There's a person who's specialist in marketing that car. There's a person who's a specialist in designing that car. And all of these people with their specializations come together to manufacture a car. Smith exemplified this division of labor. So this phenomenon where multiple people who have special skills come together to manufacture a product is known as division of labor with a pin factory. So Smith exemplified this division of labor with a pin factory in which the production of a pin takes 18 distinct operations. So a pin is probably the most trivial product that you can think that is manufactured. And even a pin, to manufacture something as trivial and as unimportant as a pin, it takes 18 distinct operations. So it takes 18 distinct operations to manufacture something as trivial as a pin. In Smith's example, a workman could scarce, perhaps with his utmost industry, make one pin in a day and certainly could not make 20. But if 10 workmen instead specialize in carrying out certain operations, they could make among them upwards of 48,000 pins in a day. So this example by the author manifests how specialization gives an advantage over every person trying to be self-sufficient. So as I mentioned that there are 18 distinct operations in manufacturing something as trivial as a pin. And if one person tries to execute all those 18 operations, if one person wakes up on a day and says, I'm going to do all these 18 operations and I'm the one who's going to make a pin from start to end, it would take him an entire day to manufacture a single pin. Okay, it would take him, what's the number? I don't know, one pin. Yeah, one pin in a day. But if 10 workmen instead specialize in carrying out certain operations, okay, so if there are 10 different craftsmen who have specialization in these 18 distinct operations, like for instance, one workman has specialized in two tasks, then how would that affect the output? They could make among them upward of 48,000 pins in a day. So if one person decides to execute all these 18 distinct operations and manufacture a pin, he will be able to manufacture only one pin in a day. But if 10 people come together and get specialized in certain of these distinct operations and they come together and start manufacturing pin, instead of one pin, the number will go up to 48,000 pins in a day. That's how effective specialization is. That's an enormous difference. Specializing increases the output of labor at least 24,000 times. That's a huge number. The difference is not in the tools or operations, which are the same in both cases, but in better organization of the production process, or specialization allows workers to be much more productive. So it's not that initially the one person that was manufacturing one pin was using different outdated medieval tools, and the people when they came together and they formed a group of 10 people and they specialized in distinct operations, they were using more advanced and novel technology. That's not the case. The tools that were at their disposal were the same. It's just that they decided to specialize in these distinct operations and bifurcate work among themselves, which is referred to as division of labor. They ended up increasing their productivity 24,000 times. So yeah, any observations, anything that anybody would like to share or any questions, please feel free to go ahead before I move forward. All right. Second, when we specialize, and because we specialize, we become dependent on others doing their part of the production process and the onus. Okay, so this sentence kind of acts as the devil's advocate. Okay, we agreed, and we've seen a manifest example of how instead of one person going through the entire process of manufacturing a needle, if 10 people come together and they specialize in those distinct operations, the productivity can go up 24,000 times. Okay, but what it does is that it increases your reliance on other. If one person is manufacturing a pin, even though he's manufacturing just one pin, he does not rely on anybody. Okay, he's self-sufficient. But when these tasks are bifurcated among 10 people, then all 10 of those rely on each other. Even if one person is absent from work at that day, the process gets jeopardized. It's not possible for you to manufacture pins because the person who is missing, only he can perform or execute that operation. Okay. So what happens in this case, okay, out of those 10 people, what if one misses work for a day? What happens? How do you manufacture a pin then? Who substitutes him because he is a specialist and nobody else is equipped with the knowledge that he has? We'll see that further. The serial division of labor in the production process creates interdependence. The 10 workmen in Smith's example can produce an enormous number of pins together, but only as long as all of them carry out their tasks. If one worker who is in the middle of the production process does not show up for work, this creates a gap in the process. The workers in the earlier operations up to the point where the missing workers a task begins will be able to do their part, but the workers requiring the input from the missing worker cannot carry out their operations, and so no pins will be produced. So we just now covered the fact that to manufacture a pen, there are 18 distinct operations. Now, let's say there are 10 people. Okay, let's say there are 9 people who come together to manufacture that pen, and each person among those 9 people have specialized two distinct operations. Okay, so the first 5 people show up for work. So the first 10 distinct operations are executed successfully, but the sixth person does not show up for work. Okay, so the 11th and the 12th distinct operations are not executed. What happens now is that the seventh, eighth, and ninth people cannot execute their work because they depend on the sixth person to first finish his tasks and then hand over the pen to them so that they can execute their tasks. So this increases reliance. So the people, like the first 5 people, can execute their task because they don't rely on the sixth person. But if the sixth person doesn't show up, then the seventh, eighth, and the ninth person cannot execute their task. The processes for the process to generate any pins at all tasks must be carried out. Simply put, the 10 specialized workers stand and fall together. If the chain is broken for whatever reason, they will revert from producing 48,000 pins to a measly 200, the max for 10 unspecialized workers in Smith's example. So, as the example says, it uses a metaphor. They all stand together and they all fall together. So, having 10 people manufacture a pen, out of which even if one person misses, all those other 9 are as good as individual workers. The division of labor concept falls flat here because of a reliance. So how do we tackle it? The author will cover it in the future passages. Such interdependence is risky and might sound like a bad idea, but it is not. Each of these workers has an interest in completing the process. Otherwise, there would be no pins to sell and no job. As an unspecialized worker, they could make no more than 20 pins each and have a low standard of living. So, because their specialized productive efforts are independent, the workers share an interest in completing the production process. So the author answers this question that might arise in a person's mind that, yes, you're right, that specialization enhances productivity, but at the same time, specialization also increases reliance. Okay. And how do you tackle that? And the answer is that each person in the manufacturing process is incentivized to carry out their tasks and not abandon them because they are monetized for it, right? So if all 10 people come together and they manufacture 48,000 pins or 24,000 pins, whatever the number is, they will get paid in accordance with their production. But if they don't show up to work, or even if a single person does not show up to work, his share would reduce drastically because then each participant will only get paid in accordance to what they've produced, and that's one single pin. So each participant in an economy where specialization or division of labor is implemented is monetized and is incentivized to show up for work. And this incentive is what reduces interdependence because you know for sure that all those 10 people that are a part of the process of manufacturing a pen will show up because they're incentivized to show up. This is one way to answer this argument. And there's another one which the author will cover in the future passages. This argument is more general and not limited to factory production. So it's important for us to realize that the author is giving an example of a pen. It could be anything. Okay, it could be the field of medicine. We have doctors that are specialists. We have neurosurgeons that only treat brain ailments that are specific to brain. We have nephrologists that only treat ailments specific to the kidney. We have dentists. We have ophthalmologists. So one doctor cannot treat the entire body. There are different doctors that are specialists that treat different parts of the body. There's a front end developer, there's a back end developer, The front end developer will only work on the front end. The back end developer will only work on the back end. So there are specializations in all fields and categories, which enhances production and manufacturing. So this example is that of a pin, but it's not specific to the pin industry. It is general in the market as a whole. When the flatbread baker builds an oven, see chapter 5, he not only increases his productivity as a baker, but also develops the knowledge and skill to produce ovens. If there are other bakers interested in using his innovation, our baker could specialize in oven making instead of baking. He could supply other bakers who can then specialize in producing oven baked bread. The baker's role has changed from baking bread to supplying ovens, and his livelihood now depends on the availability of the resources needed to produce ovens and then sell them. It is an opportunity to create more value and increase his and everybody else's living standards. So I think this is a reiteration of what we covered just now about the incorrect notion that technology robs off jobs from humans, or technology is an enemy of the humans, and every time there's a new innovation, it makes human labor redundant. Rather, in absolute contradiction to this futile notion, we've experienced historically whenever there has been a breakthrough innovation in technology, it has done nothing but increase job opportunities for humans. And here is an example of a flatbread baker. Okay, so he was a baker and then he learned how to manufacture an oven, and then he started manufacturing oven. And obviously, an oven manufacturer will make more money than a flatbread baker. So his standard of living elevates. And what this does is that now, because he has learned how to make ovens, he will sell those ovens to other flatbread bakers who will in turn be able to manufacture more breads using these ovens, and even their production will go up and their standard of living will escalate. So technology does not rob off anybody of their jobs. The simple example of the baker shows how a longer production process through innovations and the resultant intensive division of labor and capital is adopted because it produces more value. It is more productive than using scarce resources, especially labor, more effectively. So the author again reiterates that using technological innovations in machines is a far more productive way than using scarce resources like human labor. Human labor is always limited. It's a scarce resource because humans are scarce. And when you're using a scarce resource to manufacture anything, the output will also be scarce. The modern economy has extremely long production processes with such narrow specializations that most of us would not be able to survive without the rest of the economy. So the author here mentions that if we relied only on human labor and dumped all the technology, our needs in today's world would not be able to be quenched merely through human labor. Think about everything you rely on and use in your daily life, but that you did not produce yourself and probably cannot produce. We depend on a lot of strangers doing their part in the production. So this is like a nice way of the author to incite all of us to ponder that if we did not live in an economy where division of labor and specialization is an integral behavior of the market, we will not be able to live the lifestyle that we are living today. From morning to evening, all of us are using a lot of products which we don't manufacture, which we don't even know how to manufacture. We live in a house that we don't know how to build. We drive a car that we don't know how to manufacture. We wear clothes that we don't know how to stitch. We eat food that we don't know how to cook. We travel by airplanes that we don't know how to fly. Okay, so because there are specialists who do this, there are specialists who build houses, there are specialists who fly planes, there are specialists who manufacture cars, there are specialists who sew clothes. So this specialization or division of labor has enabled what we refer to as the modern life or lifestyle, or the contemporary lifestyle that we live today. And not like none of us would be able to survive even a single day if specialization or division of labor was not a part of the economy or the market that we live in. On the flip side, an economy could never sustain the many people that live in the world today without specialization, and the smaller population it could support would not have the conveniences and number of goods available to us. Our modern prosperity is a result of the division of labor and capital, which is constantly enhanced and improved through innovation and competition in the market. The market reduces the risks and potential downsides of interdependence in production and supply chains by influencing parallel production processes, redundancy. When a new and specialized production process earns profits, it will quickly be copied by entrepreneurs eager to share that profit. In other words, if the oven maker earns high profits from his ovens, others will attempt to do the same. They will develop parallel production structures to capture a share of market. So we were talking about interdependency and how specialization and division of labor might conjure up a problem that we refer to as interdependency. Okay, so in a car, if somebody is a specialist in manufacturing seats and that person does not manufacture seats for some reason, the car cannot be sold. Like the entire car is ready, the tires are there, the steering is there, the mirrors are there, the doors are there, the engine is there, everything is there. But the person who manufactures seats for some reason does not manufacture the seat. The entire car is absolutely useless. Okay, one reason or one argument to tackle this notion is what we covered recently, that the seat manufacturer is incentivized to manufacture seat, because if he does not manufacture seats, he will not get monetized, he will not get paid. So for him to survive in an economy, he needs to get paid, and that is what motivates him, pushes him, or incentivizes him to manufacture seat. Okay, and the other answer to this argument would be parallel production process, right? If one person is manufacturing seats and he's making a lot of money, that seat manufacturing company is successful, then slowly and gradually more people will start manufacturing seats, because more people want to indulge in an industry and a business that is profitable. Okay, so even if there is one specific company or there is a monopoly at a point in time of somebody who's manufacturing seats for a car, and that person refuses to manufacture seats for some reason, it does not mean that cars will not be sold anymore. It means that more people will come up in the market, will fill the void, will use up that opportunity and start manufacturing seats. So in an open market, in a free market, there is no such thing as dependence or reliance. If you don't manufacture a good or service, there is somebody else who will do that. And this is referred to by the author as parallel production process. With this type of imitative competition, the risk that production will not be completed is greatly diminished. Imagine if the oven maker had employed several workers to build the ovens to a specialized production process. The success of the whole undertaking depends on all of the workers doing their part. But when others imitate this process to capture some of the profits in the oven industry, they can use and complete a half finished oven that another entrepreneur could not complete. Thus, failure due to interdependence is of little concern in markets in contrast to centralized processes. So, in an economy, if there was only one oven maker and for some reason he did not manufacture, he stopped manufacturing ovens and left them midway, then there will be other players in the market who will complete his work, will take that opportunity and fill in that empty void that has been created in the market. Is redundancy inefficient? Why have many producers offering the same goods instead of one factory producing a larger scale? This overlooks the fact that the market is a process, more on this below, that one firm is not enough to establish all the highly specialized processes. There are two main reasons for this. First, incompleteness. Those highly specialized and unique processes would be high risk because every specialized task would make or break them. It is not obvious that using economies of scale provides more benefits than lacking redundancy, which also risks the whole process failing. Second, refinement. Innovations in production are never perfect from the beginning, but become better through competition as new entrepreneurs figure out how to improve a function without the market's redundancy. We would never get production process good enough to build economies of scale. So this passage highlights why not have just one person that is manufacturing a good or a service, and why have competitors in the market. And the answer, as the author himself mentions, is that one person is also prone to failure, and it very often happens that somebody innovates something and somebody else comes and adds on top of that and betters him. So in an economy, if there are multiple producers of the same goods and services, it's not only good for the end users, but it also like removes the single point of failure from the market. Any questions, any anecdotes, any insights, any thoughts from the original host?
Yeah, so am I audible? Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So I was going to remark earlier on how start custody, how colorful that whole spectrum is. How many services there are available? There are multi-sig wallets which are free. Is available for any individual at any level of Bitcoin to use. But there are more structured multi-sig wallets to use, like Theia and BitGo, custody itself, and also solutions like Unchained and Casa, which are regulated companies. But Casa allows you to do it non-KYC. Unchained does not. So there's a whole plethora of options in multi-sig Bitcoin, which is in the spirit of Bitcoin. It's not as if they are banks, right? You are still in custody of your funds. They can rug pull you. Or there are different balances of privacy, which is possible because of Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin was invented, this whole industry of multi-sig, which was not possible on the banking because privacy in that economy or in that sector of the economy. So yeah, I think multi-sig goes on to highlight the breadth of industry. There are many. I mean, Lightning Network. It has opened up multiple industries which are only possible currently because of Bitcoin. So it just goes on to show you that one invention outside of just the original on so many specializations and industries.
True, right. Well said. Uh, Sam, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. P Sam or Sam. I think this is your first session. So how has your experience been so far? I know you've like just jumped into the book. We're in the middle of the book, but still, any feedback, any thoughts, any suggestions, anything that you'd like to share?
I think Sam is still there. Yeah, I think
Yeah, he's
Sam
he's
spoke
muted.
briefly. Sam is, yeah. In case you're speaking, you're muted, and share your voice. Just letting me know whatever you prefer.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'll continue reading. The second point requires some elaboration. Much refinement and progress happen as market competition divides production processes into even smaller, more specialized tasks and processes. Okay, so this is like a nice point, right? Because uh, like specialization not only within an organization, like if there are 18 distinct processes in manufacturing a pin, I'm assuming there's one company that does all of that, right? Like you don't have to rely on multiple sectors or industries. All those 18 processes of manufacturing a pin are done by one organization, one manufacturing unit. But there are a lot of goods and services that cannot be manufactured without multiple industries and multiple manufacturers coming together. And like one example of it that you can think of is an iPhone or any smartphone for that matter, right? Apple does not manufacture the iPhone on its own, right? They depend on a lot of other goods and service providers. They depend on semiconductor manufacturers. They depend on battery manufacturers. They depend on glass manufacturers. So yeah, the specialization of labor does not only enhance manufacturing within a unit, but specialization of labor also enhances manufacturing within an entire industry. Like Apple is, I don't know, right now maybe around 2 trillion US dollars, and that would not have been possible. Like Apple cannot make its own semiconductors, they cannot make their own batteries, they cannot make their own glasses, they cannot make a lot of things that are an integral part of their own smartphone. If you tell them to make the entire smartphone on their own, if you tell them to manufacture their own glass, if you tell them to manufacture their own semiconductors, if you tell them to manufacture their own batteries, if you tell them to manufacture everything, I think their production will go down by 90%, and they'll only be able to manufacture 10% the number of iPhones that they usually do. So that's how important specialization is and division of labor is. So entrepreneurs constantly try to outdo existing production by innovating and finding better ways of production. They replace parts of the existing processes with more highly specialized sub processes that are expected to be more productive and could provide a competitive advantage. Again, like giving the example of, for instance, a smartphone, right? The hardware specification has changed drastically. I remember during my like junior college days, having a mobile phone with 120 MB of space was like a big flex, big flex. Now it's pretty common for you to have smartphones with 512 MB of space, or sorry, 512 GB of space. Yeah, when I was in junior college, like maybe around like 12, 15 years ago, it was like 128 GB was like the biggest flex. If you had 128 MB, I'm sorry, 128 MB was the biggest flex. And today it's pretty common to have smartphones with 512 GB of inbuilt data. So yeah, uh, like I'll repeat this. Entrepreneurs constantly try to outdo existing production by innovating and finding better ways of production. They replace parts of the existing processes with more highly specialized sub-processes that are expected to be more productive and could provide a competitive advantage. So the parts that I use are in our computers today are much advanced than the parts that were used in our computers 15 years ago, for instance, and probably even cheaper.
I think,
Entrepreneur,
sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to make one point. I recently it's at least a theory or a claim that the reason that Satoshi introduced halving per because Moore's law predicts that every 4 years the computation for one device will quadruple. So Moore's law says that every 1.5 to 2 years we have twice the number of process computation possible with the same input size. So it's like the number of transistors on the double. So the computation effectively doubles. So every 4 years it will quadruple or it will become four times. So I don't know if it's exactly related or impossible for Satoshi to predict how computation will advance. But 4 years did seem like a good guess. And so there are theories around halving and why halving and not one third or whatever. But I think Moore's law certainly did play some role. I think Satoshi definitely considered that computation is advancing. Even in 2008, it was still advancing. It definitely accelerated much later on. That in the last 5 to 8 years, we have seen drastic changes with what's a relatively young person, but I've seen just in my school that it was impossible to online, even when I was in 12th. But I remember as soon as I got in college, within 1 to 2 years, we were streaming live matches in high HD quality.
yeah, but one thing I'm not able to
It was
fathom
considered very
is
expensive in India.
yeah, one thing I'm not able to
Sorry.
fathom is like how does one thing I'm not able to understand is how does the computational power available at our disposal quadrupling by every 4 years have to do with the halving? And that could ensure that your hash rate goes up 4 times every 4 years. Okay, quadruples every 4 years, but like the how does it affect the Coinbase reward?
So why it affects the halving is how with every 4 years your machines will become more efficient. So it will become easier to hash, and it will be cheaper to just source. The Bitcoin hash rate that the miners control. It will be cheaper for them to get more percentage of the hash rate because their machines are able to. They can have more resources, get more machines, and acquire more percentage of the hash rate. This is just a theory, so I'm also still thinking it through if these are correlated at all. But I think the efficiency of machines do play a role in at least increasing the possible hash rate of the entire network and also the control over it. So yeah, just thinking out loud. Currently, I'm not sure if they are directly correlated, but yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. My personal hunch is that they are not correlated. Like we can look into it this later, but I personally am not able to find a like a relationship
Right.
between the hash rate and the Coinbase reward. But yeah, anyways,
Right.
let's move forward.
Probably research more. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Consider this example. Early on, entrepreneurs implemented new ideas to keep track of and manage production as well as to increase sales. These ideas expanded into accounting and marketing departments whose specializations made these tasks more productive. Today, accounting and marketing are separate businesses because entrepreneurs discovered that it was more productive to specialize in one or the other and sell these services to businesses as separate entities. This lets producers focus on production, accountants on accounting, and marketers on marketing. They can each specialize in their trade and improve their respective processes and increase their overall output. So yeah, within an organization also there is like a subdivision of tasks between the managing the marketing department and the accounts department. This is also a manifestation of what we are referring to as specialization or as division of labor. It is the same reason that farmers do not build their own tractors do not develop their own seeds, nor make their own fertilizers and pesticides. Productive interdependence also comes with a positive social outcome. We noted in the previous discussion that our ability to demand our purchasing power comes from producing value for others as the economy becomes ever more specialized. Our personal contribution increasingly depends on the productive contributions of others and vice versa. This also means that I, in this market setting, must serve others to serve myself because my ability to demand is based on the value of my supply. So yeah, just like you rely on other people to manufacture goods and services to be an active participant in the economy, even you need to be a specialist. Even you need to provide goods and services in return for other people's goods and services. Consequently, the more I interact with, learn about, and understand others, the better I can produce what they value most. This applies both to self employed entrepreneurs who seek to serve their customers and to employees in large corporations who are paid wages for how well they serve their employers. Thus, market production is empathic. Is empathic. Your ability to provide value for others ultimately determines the value you get in return for your efforts. This means the market process is not only about production, but is a civilizing process. It requires and augments social cooperation for our mutual and common benefit. There are no contradictions in open market production. There is only value and the pursuit of it through empathic production. Competition, in fact, is Competition is in fact cooperation. It is not directed or designed, but acted out through the price mechanism. I like that sentence. Competition is in fact cooperation. It is not directed or designed, but acted out through the price mechanism, and with it comes a better understanding and respect for other people's points of view because this makes us better. Ludwig von Mises was very clear. I think he quotes him here. Yeah, this is his quote. Society is the outcome of conscious and purposeful behavior. This does not mean that individuals have contributed contracts by virtue of which they have founded human society. The actions which have brought about social cooperation and daily bring it about anew do not aim anything else than cooperation and coadjuvancy with others for the attainment of definite singular ends. The total complex of the mutual relations created by such concerted actions is called society. It substitutes the collaboration for the at least conceivable isolated life individuals. Society is division of labor and combination of labor in its capacity as an acting animal. Man becomes a social animal. The economy and society are two sides of the same coin. It is not possible to separate the market process from society and civilization. The driving force. How long before we end this chapter? It's a big chapter, it seems. Yeah, there's no way we'll be able to wind this up. The big one. The driving force. We have referred to the market economy as a process, but have not yet discussed what makes it a process. The market that we interact with and can observe is actually a number of production processes that generate the goods and services we can buy. These processes generate jobs that allow us to earn an income, and with that income, we can choose to buy goods. But the market process is not merely the production of goods, and that is currently underway. Who decides what new goods should be produced? The simple answer is entrepreneurs. They think of new goods and new production processes that they think will benefit consumers and therefore earn them a profit. But entrepreneurs cannot know that what they produce and offer for sale will be fancied or at what prices consumers are willing to spend. So entrepreneurs speculate and they bet that what they imagine is valuable will be valued by consumers. By doing this, entrepreneurs drive the market process forward. They constantly challenge the status quo in their quest for creating more value. So yeah, entrepreneurs generally are referred to people who are ahead of their time, who know what the market demands, and like they are the people who are constantly challenging the status quo. Entrepreneurs attempt to create new value and drive the evolution of production in the long term. For example, in the year 1900, production of personal transportation centered around making horses and buggies available. But in the year 2000, it was about manufacturing automobiles. This change is what the market process is: constant change and refinement of what and how it is produced. Entrepreneurship is the driving force of the market process. The great shift from horse and buggy to automobile was a matter of entrepreneurial innovation, part of what economist Joseph A. Schumpeter famously called creative destruction. The creative aspect of the shift was the appearance of the automobile, a new type of personal transportation offered to consumers. Specifically, it was the introduction of Henry Ford's Model T, an affordable, mass produced automobile that made the new automobiles accessible to so many consumers. People didn't choose to do away with horses and buggies, but rather chose automobiles because they provided more value. Therein lies the destruction. The market for horse and buggy transportation collapsed because consumers received greater value elsewhere. To put this in different terms, automobiles provided greater value to consumers than their previously preferred means of transportation. Consequently, the people who had bred and trained horses and built buggies were no longer contributing sufficient value. Their businesses and professions were therefore soon replaced by ones that consumed the value more. Business and professions that had emerged in support of horse and buggy transportation either disappeared or had to evolve into the production of other goods. So today we have only a few stables, but there are many iron mines, steel plants, and gas stations to support the automobile. These shifts towards new value constantly occur in the market. Sometimes we are aware of them because they are swift and affect us personally, but often we are unaware of the changes. The latter is typically the case when major changes occur within production process but do not affect consumers' goods. The computer, for example, revolutionized both production process and how firms operated. Although computers can make a production process more efficient or completely restructure it, consumers often do not notice the difference in the goods offered in stores. This is a nice point. Like technological advancements are of two types, one which directly affect the consumer, like the consumer notices the difference, and ones that do not directly affect the consumer. Like for instance, there's a machine that can stitch clothes faster, right? The consumer experience no direct difference, right? It doesn't make any difference to the consumer whether the shirt that they're wearing was manufactured in 1 day or half a day or 3 days, right? It affects the manufacturer, not the consumer. And there are some changes that directly affect the consumer. For instance, a consumer buys a car that is faster than their previous car. So this advancement in technology directly affects the consumer. Although computers can make a production process more efficient or completely restructure it, consumers often do not notice the difference in the goods offered in stores. But producers see it as new professions and specializations begin to appear. These new value creating jobs offer higher wages and new types of careers. There were no computer professionals in 1900, but it was a common and respected career in 2000, and they earned a much higher standard of living than most skilled carpenters producing top of the line buggies in 1900. The production of value. Entrepreneurs compete with both existing businesses and other entrepreneurs to produce new value for consumers. Entrepreneurs have a more important role in speculating and betting on new value creation. Entrepreneurs provide the means for economic calculation. They determine the money prices of their means of production. This is fundamentally important. It is what makes the economy possible. Without entrepreneurs providing this function, it would be impossible to economize the resources and discover new innovative production processes. To understand this, we need to consider what entrepreneurs do. Specifically, we must consider what their actions as a whole mean. As with so many things in the economy, observable phenomena emerge from people's actions but are not created by any one person. Instead, they are patterns, that is order, that emerge from people's actions. To put this differently, if I drive on one side of the road but not on the other, that is no big issue. The same for other drivers. But if all drivers drive on the right hand side of the road, then this creates an order of traffic in the aggregate that is beneficial to all, fewer accidents, and faster travel. This order also affects individual drivers' decisions. It makes more sense to drive on the same side as everybody else because doing otherwise would be unsafe and highly inefficient. Similarly, what one entrepreneur does is important and might even be disruptive, as we saw with the Henry Ford's Model T, but disruptive of the previously existing market order, which is the aggregate of producers and consumers' action. Thus, entrepreneurs can individually act in certain ways. The corollary of individually driving on one side of the road and in the aggregate create an order right lane driving that benefits us all. Let's elaborate for clarity. The entrepreneur imagines a new good or process that has not yet been tried. Henry Ford imagined an automobile using assembly line production, Johannes Gutenberg a printing press, and Thomas Edison a light bulb. The entrepreneur is convinced that a new good will bring more value to consumers than existing goods do. He believes that the potential value is so high that consumers will be willing to pay for his new good. In other words, he expects to make a profit. The entrepreneur's profit calculation is based on the costs of available resources, salaries for workers, a production facility, materials and machines, electricity, etc. These costs are easy to estimate because the resources are available on the market. Their prices have already been determined. This is important and we'll come back to it. For resources that are hard to come by, an entrepreneur can estimate how much it will take to outbid other producers. The cost of building a new type of machine can also be estimated because everything that is needed is already available for purchase. Practically all the costs can be estimated in money prices, so an entrepreneur can easily estimate the cost of producing this new good. Where does this section end? I think let's wind up here. We're at 9. Okay. So yeah, page number 96. And next week,
Yep,
as
sounds
a
good.
recap, we can start from the production of value. That's okay.
Yep.
Any closing thoughts, comments? No one.
Yeah, thanks for hosting this